podcast is a member of WildGamesProductions.com and D20Radio.com.
Roll for initiative.
Issue number 59 of the Roll for Initiative podcast. I am one of your hosts, DM Vince, along this week with DM Nick as usual. Nick, how are we?
Oh, just fine and dandy. How about you?
Goody, good. Sitting in again this week, producer Matt. Matt.
How you guys doing?
Good. And back by popular demand, DM Jayson.
Earthquake!
Yeah. At the
Run
time,
for your water bottles.
At the time of this recording, this is the day of the big earthquake on the East Coast.
Earthquake apocalypse.
5.9 on the Richter scale.
Yeah, felt it all the way out here in Ohio, folks.
I had to look over at my bottle of water to see if the water was moving, to tell if it was just my imagination or not.
Where'd they say it was? Somewhere around D.C.?
Yeah.
Yeah, Virginia, D.C., something like that.
Wow.
Yep.
So, yeah. I was in the middle of a movie, watching a movie, so I didn't even notice it.
Yeah. It was only because I was sitting, like, against a wall that I was like, hey, something's, I haven't felt this since Caliph. Wait a minute.
Wait, what?
I do have to say, last year when, probably about a half a mile away from me, when two houses exploded because of a gas leak, I felt that and heard that, and it sounded like someone dropped a piano on the ground.
Wow.
It was that loud. Yeah. So on to more cheery things.
I thought it was a pretty fun earthquake, so it's cheery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cheery things. Jayson, why don't you tell us a little bit about your Gen Con experience?
Oh, boy. I came back with so much loot. I can't even... I think I spent more time in the auction this year than I have at any previous Gen Con.
You filled that bag of holding to the max, didn't you?
I totally did. I came back with... Well, okay, so I played in a Dead Game Society game of Star Frontiers.
Oh, how was that?
Thursday. Well, Chad was DMing, and he is just, uber GM, I should say, in this case. And so we were doing this, Prometheus calling, and is a starship drifting around a black hole, unable to escape. Dealing with all kinds of things from the past and the future. Completely exciting, action packed, lots of role playing. I think I'm going to start playing Star Frontiers.
Oh. Wow.
And so I went to the auction, and I got myself – I already had Star Frontiers, both of the box sets. I just had never played it. I've just been sitting on it going, reading the books and going, this looks really cool. But now that I've played in a good game, so I got a few Star Frontiers modules. I got what did I get here? Well, it doesn't really matter. I got Sundown on Star Mist, Mutiny on the Eleanor Moraes, and Turnus Planet of Mystery. And then I got a bunch of TSR Star Frontiers miniatures in the original shrink wrap.
Nice.
Never been opened, so I'm going to tear those things open and paint them.
As the geek rage is across the country right now hearing that. No!
Oh, look at this, Prime Collector's Mint item, never been rip.
No. That reminds me of the third printing of the first edition box set that they opened at the auction that was in shrink.
Wasn't that awesome?
Yes.
So there was a box set of I guess it was, they weren't sure if it was Moldave or what's the very, very first printing?
Holmes?
Holmes edition, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a Holmes edition. Anyways, it was unclear, and everybody was kind of arguing over it because it was in the shrink wrap, but all these collectors were like, well, you see, the front of the box doesn't match the back properly. If you look at the numbers, you can see how it's printed upside down here. And they're just, I think that I could have done that shrink wrapping at home. And they're all arguing about it.
Yeah, then Frank Menser chimed in and was like, no, actually that is possible because we were cheap and we would sometimes use the leftover first printing box bottoms for the third printing box tops.
Nice.
Yeah, and he's like, we could have totally put it on upside down.
That's Frank for you.
So they're all kind of arguing about it, right? And Tim Kask is standing up there. I think it was Tim that was auctioning it off. And he said, well, we're going to auction this off, and of course, we're not sure what's actually in the box, but it's not like any of you collectors are going to know because you're never going to open the thing. and the bidding goes, and it's going up and up and up, and it gets up to whatever $80 or something, and the guy wins it. And what does he say to Tim right away?
Open it.
Open it. Rip right there in front of all the collectors. It was wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a sight to behold. But yeah, so I got a lot of great stuff. I got an original, beautiful copy of Metamorphosis Alpha.
Ooh, there's a blast from the past from Tom Wam did that one.
Yep. 45. Oh, actually, James Ward. Jim Ward.
James Ward. That's it. I'm sorry.
But $45. But come on, it's worth it. Whole bunch of just all sorts of great stuff. A full set of old Traveler games, and I've pretty much maxed out my Dragon collection. I filled in all the gaps.
Oh, good.
So I now have everything, including number 2. But I don't have number 1 because that went for a lot of money, and I wasn't going to.
Traveler, the only game I know of where your character could die in character creation.
Isn't that great?
That is cool.
And then I'll tell you one thing. I mean, there's a ton of treasures. I could go on, all day listing all of the great things that I got. But the thing that I'm actually happiest with, I'd never heard of this before. It's an accessory. And it says inside here, copyright 1988, Britain Designs. I'm like, okay, haven't heard of them. And it's called the Elysian Field Time Tracker Screen. What it is, I think this is dead stock because it doesn't look like it was ever opened before. I got 2 of them, so I can keep the other one, I guess. But anyways, it's some company called Britain Designs from Chicago, Illinois. And it looks like a DM screen. You set it up like a DM screen. It's really got this beautiful kind of sepia-colored, sepia-toned artwork on it. Just something generically fantasy and very nice. But then on the inside, it's got 4 wheels that you can turn. And they're marked seconds, minutes, hours, and days.
Oh, wow.
And they're all the whole thing is dry erase. You can write on the screen and wipe it off. And what you can do is set different events that are going to happen at certain times, like write them in here. And as the gameplay goes, just, as people do things, just turn the wheel a little bit to go, yeah, that took about 4 minutes. Yeah, it probably took about 10 minutes. And then you can keep track of the time in the game as you're going along.
Oh, interesting. That sounds
it's brilliant. It's so simple. It's so easy. It's so brilliant. I wasn't sure what was going to be in it when I bought it, and I'm so glad I did. I think I paid like $3 for it. And this is going to be a constant companion for all of my games. Wow. AD&D, Star Frontiers, whatever they are.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. I walked out of a True Dungeon game.
You walked out of it?
Oh, really?
I walked out at the end of the first room.
Really? Why? What?
Well, let me just put it this way. If you're going to go through True Dungeon, try to take a few of your own friends. Don't go expecting to be able to. I ended up with one guy was supposed to go with me. He couldn't make it, so I was on my own. But I was like, whatever, it's fine. I'm a friendly guy. But I ended up with 9 people who were all like best buddies since, I don't know, they were children. And so first of all, I was like, well, okay, I tried to, talk to people, but, come on, they're doing it with each other. And then I couldn't hear a dang thing. It was louder than it had ever been before. And I just got to say the DM sucked. I mean,
really?
Just so disinterested in what was going on and not really controlling the thing. So I was like, yeah, $38, huh? Screw it. And I just turned around and walked out.
Wow,
so no more True Dungeon for me. That was unless I've got like a big group of people that I know and we're sure that the DM's going to be good.
Wow, that's the first time I ever heard anybody not having a good time at True Dungeon.
Yeah, I love True Dungeon. It was just the most disappointing experience to have it, be unfun.
And you eluded your jail time this year, Jason, because I put you up for being
Did
arrested.
You really?
Yes, I did. They tried,
oh, man.
They tried hunting you down. That's why I was trying to get you to come to certain places.
Oh.
And you were like,
we're going to try to kidnap him or something?
I was going to get the sheriff to come tackle him and bring him to jail, but he was like, no, I'm busy. I'm like, damn it.
Oh, man. Oh, that's too bad. I haven't been in jail before.
Yeah, you threw me in jail last year.
Yep. but okay. I just want to say one other thing that was a big highlight. Well, there's a few things that were big highlights. Getting a chance to spend some time with people that I hadn't had a chance to meet before, so I got a chance to hang out a little bit with Peter Atkinson, and Gail and Luke Gygax were there. So
really?
So that was good. I got to meet some folks that I hadn't met before. And by the way, Gail Gygax is still working very hard on the Gygax Memorial. So,
I heard about that.
Yeah. So anyway, so they had a whole booth set up, called Old School Renaissance, and they had a lot of Osric things for sale, and they were also giving away a book giving it away for donations to the memorial, a book called Cheers, Gary.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
You saw it?
Yeah.
Did you get a copy?
No.
Oh, definitely. I would say, drop him a donation. It's really cool. It's all the N-World conversations he had.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
It's all just Gary in his own words bound up in a book of him. It's a really nice way to sit down and read all those really fun forum posts. But the last thing was there was a game being play tested for the first time at Gen Con this year called Adventurer, Conqueror, King. And Alex, I forget his last name, the designer of the game, he's kind of more well known as the founder of the website The Escapist magazine.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So he has designed this game, and it uses the OGL. So if you're playing first edition, you can sit down, start playing this thing. You'll have no trouble with the rules. It's it's OGL. You'll totally get it. And it's structured to be what people kind of do anyway, which is starting out as a first level lowly character and working your way up to becoming a nation builder and a king, and you're all about political intrigue and huge world map type of things. But it's just structured very well so that it's intended to work that way. So you go from being an adventurer to a conqueror to a king. And we had a really good time playing it. They have a Kickstarter page that they were using to raise the money to print the book. And they were successful. They got the money they needed. So I just would say if anybody wants to check out a really cool old school game, old school spirit using the OGL rules, take a look for it. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. Awesome. So, Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit what's been going on with gaming with you this week?
Oh, gaming-wise, right now my weekly gaming group, we're in between role-playing games sessions.
Right.
We just finished our Marvel Superheroes campaign, which saw the heroes vanquish Red Skull and Hate Monger's attempt to raise Cthulhu.
Oh, wow. What a cool idea.
Yes. Yes, the Nazis determined the Third Reich's never rising again, so this planet isn't worth existing, so they attempted to raise Cthulhu, but failed, thanks to our heroes.
I mean, idea for a plot, but not idea raising Cthulhu. That would be bad. But the good plot idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine if they'd succeeded. What would have happened to your campaign?
Oh, well, it was pretty much over after this adventure, no matter what. They were the Nazis were very close to winning. They had the 3 sacrifices they needed at the mouth of the Euphrates. They just needed to finish reading some ancient text, and we used the Ultimate Powers book to create our characters. So 2 of the characters had elemental conversion, so they could take any matter, convert it to an element. So one of my players decided to convert Red Skull's eyes to oxygen.
Ooh.
To get him to stop reading the text.
That would work.
Yes.
Yeah.
So through that, they weren't able to read the text, and yes, the world was saved.
Yay. So for me, I've been actually pulling out that Call of Cthulhu book, speaking of Cthulhu, and reading that because I'm thinking about playing a game of that. So, Nick, you have to check out South Park season last 14 it was. They have a 3 episodes based around Cthulhu with Cartman who joins forces with Cthulhu to take over the world.
Oh, I've got to see that.
Yeah. they joke on remember the BP oil spill?
Yes.
Well, they call it DP, whatever.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And they said that in efforts to try to save the world, BP was drilling oil for something, and they accidentally drilled too far, and Cthulhu came out.
Oh, that is, yeah. Didn't they do like a 2-episode series on it?
It was 2 or 3 episodes, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 3, you're right.
Yeah, it was very funny. Cartman and Cthulhu working together to destroy the world.
Nice. Great.
So what have you been doing, Nick?
Well, last weekend we continued on with our campaign of the Temple of Existential Evil.
Existential.
The
Okay.
Hackmaster version of Temple of Elemental Evil. And yet they've yet to actually get into the temple itself. They're very, very close. They got to the outside. They went into the one tower on the outside of the upper level of the temple and cleared that out. But yeah, that was not all too bad. They were obviously they do things that I don't expect. But like when they went, well, here's the one thing. Oh my gosh. There's the town before you get to the temple is called Nulb. And Nulb is like Nulb, Nulb. And Nulb is like, I guess the best way to describe it is like how they describe Mos Eisley Spaceport, a hive of scum and villainy.
Yes.
Well, they were able to convince that the people of Nulb, or at least the tavern owner and most of the other people, to convince them that they were a part of the evil temple. They were able to get them all together in the tavern, except for, let's just say that they were able to get rid of all the evil, but leave the town standing.
Oh.
Yeah, they got all
some sort of neutron bomb thing.
Well, they basically were able to convince everybody in town to get together in the tavern.
Yeah.
And they burnt down the tavern.
Okay.
Oh.
Nice.
I don't want to get into any details, but it was very detailed role playing and how they pulled it off. A lot of use of the liar skilled skill.
Liar skill.
But yeah, that was pretty impressive. They actually, they burnt down the tavern with everybody in it.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm like, I never saw that one coming. But I ran with it. I'm like, you got like, the head honchos convinced that you're part of the evil temple, and they're going to get together for some special sacrifice and everything. So,
oh yeah.
So that went rather interesting.
Cool. All right, I'm going to hand the mic over to Jayson right now, who has an announcement to make, and I'll let him go on. Yeah, Jayson.
Okay, so this is a bittersweet announcement I have to make, and I'm going to just come right out with it. This is going to be my last show as a regular host of Roll for Initiative. Aww. And yeah, so this is where we at, issue number 59. We've done almost 2 years of this so far, and I'm having, honestly, a great time, just the best time doing this. And unfortunately, it's also taking up all of my time that is starting to kind of bleed over into other things, and it's becoming more stress than fun, sadly. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to become a fan for a while instead of a host. I don't really know how much there is to say about that, except that I'm just incredibly grateful to the people that have been listening all this time. So many people have written in. I've met a lot of people because of this show and gotten a lot of opportunities to speak to people that I'm a huge fan of through the show, and it's just awesome. So, Vince, this I got to thank you so much for having kicked all this off in the first place, and brought me in to be a part of it. And, hopefully I'll be back maybe from time to time to kind of guest host or say hello.
Oh, we'd love that.
But for now, this is farewell and the Roy Rogers song and all that kind of stuff off into the sunset for me. Yeah.
So what does that mean for the show? Someone's probably asking out there. Nothing, really. The show will go on with Nick and myself.
The show must go on.
The show must go on.
Jayson, don't go.
We'll have some. We'll have.
I'll be sitting on iTunes writing reviews every week.
Oh, jeez.
This show is no good without Jayson.
Yeah.
How many puppet accounts can I set up?
Darn show. Where's that Jayson kid? Yeah. We'll miss you, Jayson, and the seat's always your chair is always open if you want to come guest again.
Thank you.
When you have a chance.
Well, I am. One of the things I'm going to be spending a lot of my time on is a gaming project. So
yeah, you told me.
Probably once I'm actually writing a spy game right now. So if this if it finds itself to fruition, maybe I'll come on and hawk it a little bit. But I'd like to come back and every now and then just shout at somebody for not doing the grapple and overbearing rules properly.
No, then you'd be shouting at all of us because none of us do it.
Why aren't you using armor class versus weapon?
Now we can argue about the whole cleric thing again.
Allow me to show you the chart that I have produced to tell you why clerics cannot have edged weapons. Yes.
No way. You're wrong.
I've done a bit of research in the original Latin, and I'd like to tell you about it.
So from now on, we'll just be Nick and myself with maybe a guest once in a while until Jayson pops his head back in and says hi to us again. And we'll head into table manners.
Typical. Of all the evil creatures in the world, I had to find one with table manners.
What are you kidding me? I spent years cultivating the worst table manners on the planet.
Table manners.
And now we are in Table Manners, where we will be discussing metagaming, that nasty thing that most games end up with when the players just know too much. So if you're gaming with someone like Nick, who has every monster memorized, how do you handle that?
Now, don't forget
30 years of gaming, you think I would know something about all the monsters in the game, you think?
Don't forget metagaming could be done on the DM side as well, because a DM could be listening to the party's plans. How does he not know? You got to be a good DM not to say, haha, the monsters know what you're doing, because I know what you're doing.
Yes, right. You end up with the whole Princess Bride thing of, I know that you know that I know that you know that I know that you know.
Inconceivable.
Yes.
So what's the actual definition of metagaming? Knowing something your player knows that a character shouldn't know?
Yeah. But basically any knowledge that the player has that the character would not. And having the character actually act on that knowledge.
Right.
Yeah, like in one of the campaigns that was maybe about 10 years ago, I still remember this. The guy said, "Oh, we're leaving that room. What about the buried sword of +1? Never mind." The DM's like, "What sword +1?" He goes, "It's in." Oh, never mind. Yeah, DM was kind of pissed then, and so.
Yeah, but I mean, at that point, I think as a DM, that's when you go, "Yeah, there's no sword there now."
Well, no, the sword was gone apparently, but
Yeah.
So I'd say, yeah, it's there, but it's cursed.
now it's cursed. So
yeah, and I mean, I think maybe another side to the metagaming issue can be not just knowledge of the adventure itself or the monsters in it, but some of the little optimizing things that people do sometimes that I think are more about understanding the rules of the game than they are about
like min-maxing kind of.
Yeah, I mean, not that AD&D necessarily lends itself as much to that as some systems do, but still, if that's the way you play, I think there's things that players do that a character wouldn't think of if they were actually in that world, as opposed to being a player looking at the rules behind that world.
Interesting.
And dead silence.
Dead silence.
Yeah.
Well,
it's tough for me because it's tough for me to be certain if I'm talking about this in a first edition kind of world, because I as a favor to a friend, I jumped in and did some DMing on a game of D&D Encounters, the 4th edition game that's kind of for people who haven't played, that just get used to the idea of role playing, and which it's cool. I like that's out there, but it was such a different experience. And one of the guys at the table, to actually help me a lot, because he knew rules. I didn't know the rules like that. I was just like, well, there's a dragon, and now this is going to happen. And he's like, yes, but do you realize that you've got combat advantage? I'm like, what? So in some cases it was kind of helpful. Like, he's like, what about your action point? I'm like, your what? But yeah, so I mean, sure. There's maybe if a game system, whatever system you're playing, has some rules that are a bit more game-y than others, then sure they can take advantage of those. But there must be some things in first edition, such as I chose not to prepare that spell this morning because I knew that one of the other players would be doing something that would offset it. I decided I wouldn't bother doing any. I wouldn't pray for any healing spells today because I think that in a castle like this, the DM is sure to have put healing potions in plenty of good places.
Yeah.
Right. You can even say the same about weapon selections because you'll have weapons that damage-wise they'll be identical, but they'll be different sizes, different speeds, and they'll pick the weapon that offers them the most combat advantage, not necessarily what their character would carry.
Right.
I guess that is a bit like metagaming too, where you take those rules, knowledge of the rules, and I guess meld them with what your character would do and to your best advantage, I guess would be a way of saying it.
Yeah.
That's one type of metagaming I never even really thought about.
From a player's perspective, I was playing in somebody's AD&D game at Gen Con the other week, and I was a little disappointed that the way that the dungeon was laid out, and it was, tunnels under a mountain, but whatever, it felt a lot more like something that a DM would do in order to balance it than the way that you would actually construct this if you were trying to, build a stronghold. It was much more about balancing it for the game, and all of the things that I was trying to think as a character, like what would I expect to be coming up, turned out not to be, and all the things that I would think of as a player of a game, like how would you balance this properly, that turned out to be the way it was. So I had to think more like a person playing a board game than a adventurer going through a dungeon.
And that just takes you out of the role-playing aspect of it, because you're gaming the system instead of doing a role-playing / gaming experience.
Yeah.
Instead of doing both things, there's a little bit of gaming involved, a little bit of role play. Now you're just kind of gaming your way through it.
If you ever find yourself at a table where somebody says, I'm going to check for traps, and the next person says, well, really, do you think the DM's going to put a trap here? That's metagaming.
Yeah, that is absolutely. So
what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do? What do you do? It's crazy. It's nuts.
The opposite of what the players are doing.
The opposite of what the players. Yeah.
Well, if a player's sitting there going, okay, I throw these kobolds at them, and they're just like, well, I know they automatically have this armor class and this many hit points, I would change everything around.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's why you sometimes, as on the DM side, that's where you have to every so often throw the players a curveball. Do something out of the ordinary, something that they won't expect. And that's sometimes hard to gauge. Sometimes, especially if you have a group of players that you've been with for a long time, and they know how you are as a GM. Sometimes you gotta, as a GM, try to get out of that way, how they're anticipating how you are as a GM. You gotta somehow break out of it. I think I have recently with the game world that I made, where they're 500 years in the future. So the whole history of the world that they know of is like brand new to them.
Good.
And I think that helps tremendously. They're in a world where, yes, there are some familiar names, but most of everything else has changed up, and that did throw them for a loop. And now we'll see how it goes. So, throwing them a curveball once in a while like that, I think helps on the GM side. But player side, boy.
Yeah. Yeah. You could even try, when it comes to player knowledge about the world or monsters, try working that into their character. Why would their character know this? So maybe you can explain away some of that player knowledge so you don't have to worry about it as much.
I think a lot of times as players, we forget that we do not know everything. Our characters do not know everything about the world. Just to give an example. Say, I don't know, a ranger who spent most of his time in the mountainous areas of a particular region of the world. He would have little, if any, knowledge of things that would be found in a swamp or in a desert or anything like that. He's out of his environment. So you can't have a ranger who's from the mountainous hinterlands of the north, and somehow he and his adventuring party come across these vast deserts. He's not going to have knowledge of the dune stalker. Okay? Yeah. He's not going to know what that thing is.
And, maybe his tracking is not as good in other places, too. Do you think?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And things like that, like a magic user, I don't know, for example, who spent most of, not all of his time in the city, in an urban environment, just studying. Just studying magic. Or so he might have some knowledge on magic, and maybe being in a city and our environment, know a little bit about diplomacy and being in the city. But once he's out there in the wilds, he's going to be like, a fish out of water. He's not going to have a lot of knowledge. And I think a lot of times as players, we forget to play that up.
Yeah, Top Secret SI actually did something interesting when it came to player knowledge, that they said if a player knows it, their character knows it. The skills they take are just to supplement things the player does not know. So if I'm a chemist in real life, my character in Top Secret SI also has that same chemistry knowledge.
Oh, cool.
So
that works really well with a game that's set in modern times.
Right. For a modern time game, that works well. When it comes to the lands of fairies and dragons, however, it's kind of hard to make that same comparison.
Although, actually, now that I think about it, enough players, as it's been 40 years of D&D now that has existed, there's enough that probably have more or less grown up in that world. So,
well, you never know.
Let's use Nick as an example.
Wow.
No, I'm saying of having a lot of knowledge of something. You're a walking monster manual.
Well, hey, all those years I had to read something.
So, actually, you're a walking fiend folio.
Yes.
That's what it is.
I take that as a compliment. Thank you very much.
I mean it as one.
I hope so.
Because Lord knows what you'd throw at me out of the pages of that book if I didn't.
Oh, get Yankee.
That's probably what it would be.
Or a flump. Anywho.
Flump.
So, yeah, metagaming, I think the most common thing, and I think we were all talking about before, is like adventures, modules that, you've heard about, you've maybe played, and you're playing through them again. And I'm actually experiencing that right now. I do have a player, Gary. He, great player. He's been playing probably as long as I have. He knows a lot about the different adventures, different modules, and we talk about them from time to time. And we're playing through essentially Temple of Elemental Evil. He's played through it before, but he's been very, very good of keeping his knowledge of the adventure out of the game and using it to his advantage and to a larger degree to the advantage of the party. And I commend him on that. And that takes a lot because I know I've been in that situation where it's like you've played in a particular adventure and you're thinking in the back of your head, I know what's going to happen next. Yeah. But you can't say anything. You don't want to say anything. And that's, to a person's credit, it's best to say, you know what, my character has no knowledge. Play it through. See what happens. You might surprise yourself.
Word.
Yeah.
Word.
So when it comes to metagaming, basically, just try to think what your character would know and go with that, as opposed to just trying to actually role play. Don't play the game. So, listeners out there, let us know what your thoughts are on metagaming. How do you handle someone with the encyclopedia of knowledge on adventure modules and monster manuals? You can write us at rfistaff@gmail.com. and we are now going to head into game mechanics.
You think I'm mad? Perhaps I am.
What are you, a wizard, a genius?
Darn. A perfectly good brain wasted.
Game mechanics.
And we are back with game mechanics.
Pulling double duty this week.
Oh, yeah. Back to back. And we are going to be discussing the mixing of potions. When I say mixing of potions, I'm not talking about brewing a potion. I'm actually talking about what happens when you take your potion of clairvoyance and mix it with your potion of giant strength.
Boom.
In your tummy.
Yeah. Yeah. If we go to page 119 of the DMG under potion miscibility, it talks about the two conditions in which potions can mix when you actually mix them, or they're just intermingled, or when someone consumes a potion and then while the effects of that potion are taking place, you consume another potion. And then there's actually a chart that you can roll on when that happens.
Yes.
I love this one.
Charts.
Yes, yes, it's glorious.
Well, let's roll. Let's roll.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I don't have dice handy. Someone roll me a percentile.
All right, hold on a second.
You
I
just
got
drank a potion of healing and a potion of giant strength. And
73.
73. They're missable. They work normally unless their effects are contradictory, such as diminution and growth, which will simply cancel each other out.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
But if you would have rolled a 0-1, you would have had an explosion internally.
Nice.
For 6 to 60 hit points. Yes, an internal explosion. 6 to 60 hit points. And those within a 5 radius take 1 to 10 hit points. If you mix them externally... Yeah. And if you mix it externally, everyone within a 10-foot radius takes 4 to 24 hit points. And no save.
No save.
No save.
How about if you roll a 00?
Then we're at Discovery.
Discovery.
The mixture of the two potions has caused a special formula and will cause one of the two potions only to function, but its effects will be permanent.
Oh.
Yes. So that permanent potion of giant strength does make me wonder, though, what is a permanent potion of healing?
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering about that.
You become Wolverine.
Yes, you just reach.
Okay, so it doesn't say here, it doesn't tell the DM which one to make permanent.
Right.
No, I'd be up to the DM's discretion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd actually roll it off 50-50 if it was 2 potions.
Bah.
Yeah, unless one of them was one that as a DM you'd have a hard time, like healing, potion of healing.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, maybe you just give them a little bit of a, permanent. Every day you have the ability to have, to heal 4 points of damage at will, but only once a day.
Well, maybe the effects like a ring of regeneration or something.
Right.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
Because let's see, what's some of the potions that are out there we could mix like this? Are there any that could really... Okay, how about this one?
That would damage a campaign?
Yeah.
Well, no, actually, it doesn't all have to be good either. What if one of them is a potion of flying?
I was just thinking that.
You permanently fly.
Potion of gaseous form.
That's goodbye to your character in a puff of smoke.
You're now Kitty Pryde.
Yes.
Filter of love.
Ooh.
I have to look it up, but I think that's something that makes creatures fall in love with you. So that could really mess up a camp. This is fun. Start mixing your potions, people.
Yeah, here's one that would really mess things up. Undead control.
That'd be a little.
Here comes now Frodo, the zombie master.
Yeah, treasure finding.
Oh boy.
Well, a DM has always got it within their discretion to do something about a character that's gotten too powerful, to find some way to, have a nice curse waiting for them, specially prepared inside a trap that only they're going to happen to set off. So,
yeah.
Isn't that metagaming, though?
Well, the DM's allowed to metagame.
Yes.
Well, no, okay.
Well, the DM, okay, my opinion is the DM's job is to keep the story going and keep everybody having a good time. And if that means a little metagaming to get it back on track, go for it.
Why is that considered metagaming, Nick?
I don't know. It just seems I would do it too.
Well,
anyway.
the rules also give you the say you can actually go ahead and pre-assign what different combinations would do. So you could have in your world, if you drink a potion of healing with anything else, the potion of healing just canceled. So it actually gives you that caveat as well. So you're not stuck with strictly the random table.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, this is a place where, metagaming would be dangerous if you had, well, not dangerous, but annoying, if you had a player who was sitting around going, well, I'm deliberately mixing potions because I know the rules and you didn't roll it properly. I should be able to heal eternally. That's where you're like, actually, you might have read the book, but it's my game.
Right.
As you permanently lost all your hit points and you have one.
Yeah. And just for the people who might be listening and getting ready to write in about, well, actually, the potion of flying wouldn't, as I'm looking at it now, probably the potion of flying would not force you to permanently fly because it actually just enables the individual to fly in the same manner as the third level magic user spell. So they're not forced to fly, but it would still be funny if you made them do it anyways.
Oh.
Okay, cool.
Oh, one last one before we finish the segment. One last potion to make permanent. Diminution. Shrinks you to 5% your normal size.
Oh, that's a good one to have.
Yes.
That'd be awesome. I love the idea of a character who's permanently 5% their usual, and all their possessions are 5% of their usual size.
And they'll be running around. Yeah, they'll be running around looking for that potion of enlarge to get back to normal size. So
just think of all the things that they could get away with at 5% their usual size.
Yeah.
And for the party, you don't have to share as much treasure with them. You're tiny. You don't need all this gold. You couldn't carry it.
One gold piece is enough.
Yeah.
Put that in your knapsack.
Here, this belt pouch is like a giant tent to you.
Nice. All right, so tell us how you do it. Mix your potions. What do you do? Do you have a chart pre-planned? Write us rfistaff@gmail.com. 570-865-4210, the RFI hotline. And we'll head into Creature Feature.
Creature Theater.
All right, folks, it's Creature Feature Theater, and this week we're not going to the Fiend Folio. Surprise, surprise.
Blasphemy.
Yes, shock. I know. We're going to Monster Manual Part 2. Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah.
And Monster Manual 2. And if you go to page 94 of your Monster Manual 2, we're going to talk about, I think it's pronounced Myconid, the Myconid, or the Fungus Man.
Oh, yeah.
This is I read up on this thing. I was a little familiar with them. I kind of just passed them like, okay, wants to play up against a bunch of mushrooms, but they're very, very interesting.
Shrooms, dude.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. It's a very detailed description about not just the myconids themselves, as far as how they hit dice and hit points and when number appearing, what have you, but a detailed description of their society.
Huh.
But in itself, the myconids or fungus men, they look like walking toadstools. Their skin extrudes, I guess, a type of substance that can be harmful to animal flesh, and thus it can cause 1 to 4 points of damage when touching it. But it's not on their hands; it's just other parts of their body. They never venture out in the sunlight from underground because they're afraid of the sunlight. There's nothing known if there's an effect on them as far as sunlight. So that's something that, as a DM, you might want to explore later on if you want to use these guys in a campaign.
Cool.
But their society is based on circles, and this is totally reflected in their
Google
alignment
circles?
of being, well, just like they're just small social groups.
Google
and this
circles.
is
So Google
this
circles.
Google
Yeah,
Plus.
they're based on Google Circles.
So they have Google Plus.
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
These are my work myconoids, and these are my friend myconoids. Over here are my school buddy myconoids.
and these are the ones I met.
Myconids. Sorry.
Yeah, or myconids, where they're called.
Yeah, sorry.
I like
Here, I'm
myconoid. That sounds good though.
not
But
spelled that way, though.
myconids, they have these circles, social groups of roughly 20 individuals, and their day is structured 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, and 8 hours of what's called melding. And this might have entertainment, worship, and social interaction. And then the myconids, they form a tight circle during this melding, and the elder members release report and hallucinator spores. The entire group then merges into a collective telepathic hallucination for 8 hours.
So they all get high.
Oh, this is
Basically.
awesome. This myconids were definitely, I don't care, 1982 this came out, these were created in the 70s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
myconids
definitely.
consider this melding to be the reason for their existence. So, yeah, and it's strictly structured. They have these three 8-hour days, and this is reflected like in their alignment. They're lawful neutral. So they respect this whole 3 8-hour day. There's, like I said, there's about 20 members in a myconid circle, and the highest member, cute, I should say, the highest ranking member is the one, he's called the myconid king, and I'll get to him a little bit
Like
later.
the Lizard King.
Yeah, in a way, if you want to go with that Jim Morrison.
I do. I'm taking this there. I'm completely taking this there every time.
Mm-hmm.
But
what's the really hallucinogenic module? Isn't there a real psychedelic module?
Psychedelic one?
Yeah, I thought one of the modules had a real psychedelic theme to it.
Well, there's Dungeon Land and Land Beyond.
No, it's just Alice in Wonderland.
That's not psychedelic.
Well,
enough.
yeah, that is psychedelic, but it's not what I was thinking of. All right, I'm going to
can't
look it
think
up while you talk.
Yeah, I can't think of it. But depending on the hit dice of the myconid, they have different types of spores that they can release. Like one hit dice, myconid can release a distress spore out in a cloud, and it basically warns other myconids that there's danger. If you got the 2 hit dice, they can do distress and reproducer. Basically, a reproducer is, a way of reproducing. There's one called report, which is a way of communicating, and this is how myconids can communicate with other creatures. They release a spore, and if you, I believe, fail a save versus poison, then you can have a telepathic link with those myconids and talk to them telepathically.
Oh, I found the psychedelic module.
Which one was it?
Which
I
one
was Well, okay, it wasn't that it was that much. I was remembering the way that somebody had reviewed it once. There was a Ken Denmead of Wired wrote an article about the best D&D modules, and he said that the Queen of the Demon Web Pits was that the doors in it were kind of like something out of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Band.
Okay.
And he was saying that it was a very psychedelic kind of experience that you could set it up that way. So I think that's the one I was thinking of. But anyways, we should put some of these guys in there because that's perfect.
Yeah.
Down the demon web pits? Oh, yeah.
There you go. Well, you have the report, pacifier, which basically when I believe a 4-hit dice myconid releases a pacifier spore, you fail your save versus poison, you just stand there and don't do anything against them. You just kind of like your senses and your thinking is completely dulled. And then the next one is where you get pretty interesting. You have the hallucinator, a 5-hit dice. When you get the 5-hit dice, you could do everything else plus hallucinator, where you could start seeing weird things. And then you have the last one, 6-hit dice, and I think this is probably, if the hallucinator one wasn't enough, animator. This is where this is the only one that the king is. He's a 6-hit dice myconid, and that's the myconid king. He can release a spore that can basically reanimate the dead. A purple fungus will grow on the corpse, and it'll become a zombie. But they cannot be turned by a cleric.
Yeah, they're not that kind of a zombie. They're more of
it's a fungus,
like a Caribbean zombie. Like a Caribbean zombie.
Yeah,
almost, pretty close to that. And the fungus, the myconid king, can use these as, like maybe as guards or as maybe even workers, something of that nature. And what I thought was very interesting is at the very end, when they talk about the Myconid King, he's the largest member, like you say, he's 6 hit dice, and he's the only member of the group that is not allowed in the circle.
Huh.
Which I thought was kind of interesting. The description is the other Myconids regard separation from their circle with horror and pity the lonely king. The leadership role is thought of as a very unpleasant duty, almost a condemnation. However, when the old king dies, the strongest 5 hit dice Myconid always assumes the role of the new king. The king must remain outside circle affairs to retain objectivity and pay close attention to the duties of leadership. The king animates guardians for the colony. So
he's basically their designated driver.
Yeah, he's kind of like their protector, the designated driver. He's the guy.
He's the sober one.
He's the one that also has to be aware of what's going on outside of the colony, like if there's any outside threats.
Yeah.
So
everybody else is getting high. He's on guard.
Okay, I am right now writing myself an adventure based around a bunch of Myconids organized like Charles Manson out at the Spawn Ranch.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
Funny that you mentioned adventures. Myconid were featured in an adventure before they were in Monster Manual 2. Can any of you guess what it is?
I cannot.
Palace of the Silver Princess. I don't know what.
You're wrong.
Oh, what was it?
Catch a Falling Star.
Matt? Come on, Matt.
Nah, I read this earlier and I can't remember.
Module A4 in the Dungeons of the Slave Lords. It's part of the Slave Lord series.
You know what? I just went through Dungeons and Slave Lords, but we didn't get that far.
Yeah,
it was a con game.
They did the Mega Dungeon.
So now you have some metagaming, Jason.
Yeah.
It's
I'll
also
just scream Jerry Garcia and run the other way.
It's also in the I think when they create it as the Mega Dungeon, I forget what it's called, Assault of the Slave Lords, when it became the big super module. Mm-hmm. They combined all 4. The Myconid were in that, and in that module, I have it right here. It's not to give away too much, but there's the abode of the Myconids, and they have just outside of it. There's a mushroom garden. There's also a quote unquote welcoming committee. You could probably guess what those are comprised of. Huh. There's a fungus forest, a farm. There's also the chamber in which they all meld, and the royal chamber where the king is. Now, in the module, there is a situation to where you're trying to get away from the slave lords, and you're in these dungeons, and not to give away too much, but your characters are lacking in a lot of things because you're trying to escape the slave lords, so you don't have much of nothing.
You got loincloths.
That's pretty much it. But
I'll tell you, we put those loincloths to good use the last time I went through that module.
Oh, really? Okay.
That you can do all sorts of stuff with them if you don't mind. You're running around without wearing it.
It's like the towel, a hitchhiker's guide.
It's very useful, as a matter of fact. Yes.
But there's a situation in the dungeon where if you can help the Myconid and they could be your allies. There's a certain situation that will arise if you complete a particular task, or if you already had and then you meet them. They might befriend you and help you out a little bit. So, yeah, it was a module A4 in the Dungeons of the Slave Lords. I remember reading this. I'm like, were they in a module? And I go to my bookshelf, and there it is. And you can see it right on the cover. It's an Errol Otis cover, and it's about as psychedelic as Errol has ever done. So those are the Myconid, basically in a mushroom cap.
Oh,
ba-dum-bum. So,
you know what?
Actually, these guys, I want to use these in my campaign. They're really cool.
I really do want to write a whole adventure around them. You know, I guess I probably wouldn't want to turn them into evil and give them the Spawn Ranch side of thing. I'd probably find some other monster to assume the role of the Manson family, but I would like to have them in there somehow, maybe guiding the characters on some sort of a journey of the mind that gets them ready to take on the evil ones.
I also picture them if you are able to talk to them through the report spore, they have to have some completely alien way of thinking. I mean, it's got to be weird. I mean, they're fungus. I mean, come on. I would have to fungus. I would have to make the experience as a DM when the players are interacting with these fungus men, when they're actually talking to them. They're going to be like, what are they talking about? What is
I would say read some of Robert Anton Wilson's kind of more psychedelic writings and just sort of steal from some of his characters if you want to give them,
or the Illuminatus trilogy again.
Not a bad idea. Or I think there's actually, I don't even remember if Hagbard Celine has like a whole scene where he goes through something like that or not. But have you guys ever seen the film, I think it's from like the late 1960s, maybe early 70s. It's got Peter Fonda in it, and it's called The Trip.
Oh, yeah. I heard about that one. That was the one that was the one they used to fund Easy Rider.
Is it really?
Yes.
Kidding. It's an awesome movie.
Yeah, they made Easy Rider from the funds they made off that.
It's a really good movie, and if you want to get yourself into the mindset to kind of go like, okay, I've got it. I've got that sort of 70s psychedelic mindset going on, and you don't want to go out and buy a bunch of illegal drugs and destroy your brain just to play a game, then much better to watch that movie.
Play some Iron Butterfly in the background.
It sounds like you're doing a Cheech and Chong song, but yeah.
Hey, man!
You can watch any of the Cheech and Chong movies.
Actually,
that would be awesome if you had a little comedy bit on and be like Cheech and Chong.
Speaking of Cheech and Chong, I have to tell you guys something funny really quick. I was watching that new TV show that's on USA or TNT called Franklin and Bash, and they were doing, and it's about lawyers in court. And it was one kid got busted for drugs in court, and guest starring was Chong as the judge to deal with that case.
Oh, awesome!
I didn't recognize him at first because he was all dressed up. It was neat, hair was all neat, and his beard was trimmed. But then when he got up and said, "Yo, you guys getting busted for marijuana?" I'm like, "Oh my god, that's Chong."
What's the show called?
Franklin and Bash.
Good. I need a new TV show.
Season just ended.
Good. I can watch the whole thing at once.
Yes.
So how would you use them in a campaign, Vince? If you were going to use the Myconid, any ideas?
I don't know how I would use these guys. Maybe I would send them. I would send the players out to find these mystical creatures to give them information, and they have to speak to the king. But they kind of have to toke on the way there or something. I don't know.
How about you're a cleric in a religion, and you've been called to a very, very high level cleric who is concerned that his followers have been straying to a false god, and he's trying to figure out what's happening, and it turns out all they've been doing is getting mixed up with the Myconids, and they've been getting high, and now they start thinking that there's a god that doesn't even exist, and the Myconids are trying to actually go, no, we're not trying to tell them that, but unfortunately you have to figure out some way to free them from the influence.
One way I think you could play them, it kind of alludes to it in the description in the monster manual, is they seem to be, and I think we talked about this earlier, Matt, they seem to be kind of like they're very wary of surface dwellers, very wary, I guess, in a very loose sense. They tend to shun anybody from the surface anyway.
Right.
So I think it'd be really hard to interact with them. I guess what would you say, Matt?
I could just see them as having their own little tribe, their own little community, and then the players are just, we're on to our next adventure or whatever. Then all of a sudden they just find all these mushrooms, and depending on if the players say, they look like monsters, let's smash them, or do they try to interact, or they just ignore them, because the Mycodon are peaceful creatures. They're not going to just attack. They're not going to engage unless the players bring it on themselves.
Right. In fact, it's the Myconid king who makes those animated corpses with the spores. It's those zombies' job is to defend the circle. He tries to keep from the Myconid actually themselves fighting. They want to just work, sleep, and like commune, man. You know, like get together and just like be one with the shroom, man.
Yeah.
Far out.
Nick,
I
guess
just
what?
want to be left alone.
Nick, guess what?
What?
There's a Pokemon like this.
Shut that.
Yes, there is. So, yeah, look it up. I'm not going to tell you which
Really?
one. Yeah, there actually is a Pokemon like this.
It's a mushroom.
It's a mushroom that spores things out to like knock people out because they're sent, and when they're all in a group together, they all like spend their spores out and they all dance and sing and like they're all high.
If there's a Pokemon like the Myconid, then that just shuts the book on the whole thing. They stole everything from D&D.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So, I'd like to hear how you folks out there maybe want to use the Myconid, or if you have, give us a buzz over at osrgaming.org, the website over there. Drop us a line. Let us know what you think.
Nick 7 posts.
Hey, I got things to do. Stuff to do.
Matt has more posts than you do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess this will bring us to our next feature, which is the Dragon's Horde.
Or
The Dragon's Horde.
Now we're stepping into, carefully, don't disturb. It's the Dragon's Horde. Oh. Done it. All right, so in the Dragon's Horde, we finally come to something that I do like to put into my campaigns. I think I've probably had this show up at least once in every campaign I've ever run, to be perfectly honest, and that is the Ring of Wizardry.
Okay.
And this ring can only be used by magic users. Other classes, it doesn't matter if they can use spells or not. They can neither use nor even understand the workings of a ring of wizardry. Because basically it's good for one thing, and that's increasing the amount of spells that a magic user is capable of preparing in a day. And before you put this into the game, you just roll it up to see what kind of a ring you've got here. So if we roll, let's see, I just rolled an 82. So that means that this would be a ring that doubles your third level spells.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it can the most common, the 01 to 50 are ones that double the first level spells. It is possible to roll a 00 when you're putting one of these in your game and be able to double both fourth and fifth level spells. So that would be a powerful.
Well, even at third level, if you got the third level one, I mean,
right.
Imagine, being I don't know, what's a good level magic user they have?
5.
Third level. Okay, fifth level magic user. I'll look it up here. Fifth level magic user. You get one spell. It doubles. You get 2. Okay,
So,
great.
That's better than 1.
But what if you've got bonuses?
What if you were? Let's say, what if you were 8th level? You would get. Normally, you have 3. With this ring, you would get maybe 6.
Ooh.
There you go.
But then if you have actually, wait a second, sorry. I don't know what made me think of this. I guess I was mistakenly thinking about wisdom. I was about to say something about magic users getting an intelligence bonus, but
No.
That's not
No.
Wrong edition.
But the way I do use this is while it's really exciting to be a big powerful wizard and get your extra 3rd or 4th or even 5th level spells, I usually prefer to have the ones that just are either doubling your 1st or maybe your 2nd level spells. Because where I usually try to have a Ring of Wizardry show up is in a very early campaign, because honestly, the poor magic user who's only got 1st level spells and only gets 1 or 2 of them, it's tough. So it's nice to be able to have the thing is that I think that the magic items and treasures that I most like putting in a adventure are the ones that do 2 things. One, that they don't unbalance the game too much. That they are not overly powerful, and two, that when a player gets it, they get genuinely excited about it. And if you're playing a magic user and you suddenly can double your first or your second level spells because you're kind of low level, players they really like getting that.
I agree. Well, even even a high level wizard, relatively high, like an 8th level, he gets a ring of wizardry that doubles first level spells. You went from 4 to 8 per day.
That's true. So
imagine
you get
casting 8 magic missile spells a day if you were going to max out just magic missile. And at 8th level, how many magic missiles can you cast from one spell? How many missiles generally come out? That's
like 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's hellacious. So
yeah.
And then I think you get into the other thing that makes a good treasure is one that you can, as a DM, fairly easily and plausibly take away.
Yeah.
So if they do start getting to the point where you're like, old Bigby there is getting a little bit too powerful, and it's really nobody else is getting to do very much. He's sitting there with 37,000 spells. The next time he reaches in for something, a little creature bites his finger and pulls the ring and runs away.
Yeah.
And takes the finger with him.
Maybe so.
I've encountered a version of this ring. There, a few years back, when my players, when we were at a Hackmaster tournament, the aforementioned Gary I was talking about, he has a character who's a cleric magic user, and we were in the tournament. I can't remember if it was either Gen Con or Origins, and one of the things, if you can win like serialized magic items. Magic items have serial numbers, and they're way super cool magic items. One of the things he got was a version of this Ring of Wizardry, but it's called the Awesome Ring of Wizardry. And what this one does, if I remember correctly, it's like the most awesome Ring of Wizardry. It doubles the amount of 3rd level magic user and 3rd level cleric spells. I'm like, great, and the cleric magic user has it. So you could make maybe a version of this where it also, doubles your cleric spells. Instead of being the Ring of Wizardry, the Ring of Clericy?
Piety.
Clergy?
Ring of Piety. There you go, Ring of Piety. Or the Super Ring of Wizardry, where you can make it where it does, cleric and magic user. I don't know. So,
although I think a Ring of Piety for me would have to be limited to lower level cleric spells. This is just purely out of continuity with the way the game world is supposed to work. Because a cleric, for getting their higher level spells, they get them granted directly by their deity. They pray specifically for those, and I think any self-respecting major deity in the world would not allow themselves to be forced into something like that by something like a little
doubling their worshippers' spell ability.
Yeah, I think that as soon as Odin looked down and saw his cleric standing there going, "I get double today, yeah, right, you do.
Now you get none.
Exactly. How dare you insult me by trying to control me with a puny ring?
Well, that would be an interesting variant of it, though. Let it double those high-level spells, but also give it a chance that you get none that day.
Mm.
So maybe sometimes you catch Odin in a good mood, he'll give you that second spells. Other times he's like, I'm not talking to you, go away, come back tomorrow.
Maybe
he's like, nah.
Maybe his car broke down that day. He got a flat tire and he was having a bad day. So
right. Had to break the fight between the sons, I mean.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Okay. So, yeah.
That's the ring in a finger.
Don't.
Tell us how you use it. rfstaff@gmail.com.
Blackstone's Vault.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Blackstone's Vault. I am your host, Blackstone. In this episode, I will be covering Module WG4, The Forgotten Temple of Tharizdun, which is part of the WG series, World of Greyhawk series, and this was written by Gary Gygax, published in 1982 by TSR Hobbies, and it covers levels 5 to 10. Now, this module is interesting for it's an addition, an add-on to Lost Caverns of Zoicanth, which was Module S4 of the S series, the special series of modules. Now, how the player characters get involved is, in that particular module, one of the areas that they discover is the Gnome Vale. There's an area of mountain gnomes. They live in this valley, and the player characters hopefully befriend them. Now, in relating to this module, the leader of the gnomes relates some information to the player characters that they've been having some serious trouble. Some attacks have been happening to the gnomes by giants and ogres and Norkers, just to name a few creatures. So he asks for their help in finding out where these creatures are coming from, and in the hopes that they can eradicate the threat. Now, part of the underlying story is where these Norkers and giants and other humanoid creatures are raiding from is an old, long, forgotten temple dedicated to the ultimate evil god, Tharizdun, who was banished hundreds of years ago beyond space and time. And not even the current dwellers of the temple, know what the original intent of the temple was. They're just using it as a base of operations. So even they are completely ignorant of what's the true meaning of the temple. With that being said, this module oozes atmosphere. As in my previous module, I covered Ravenloft, which is very much in the epitome of the gothic horror genre. This one is very Lovecraftian in its approach. Think of the works of H.P. Lovecraft, or even some of the swords and sorcery adventures by Robert E. Howard, and much of the Conan the Barbarian stuff, where he has to deal with sometimes horrors from beyond space and time, and Tharizdun is a horror beyond space and time. Now, basically, there are two sections of this module. There is a wilderness section, and then there's the dungeon section, the actual temple. Now, in the wilderness section, if you're familiar with Module S4, Lost Cavern of Zoicanth, in that respect, it's very similar to the wilderness setup of that module. So you have random encounters plus some other preset encounters that are in the mountains when the player characters go venturing forth. Some of these encounters are trolls. There's an avalanche. You also have Aarakocra, griffins, Lucrata. There's a safe valley if they're lucky if they can find it. And also there's a group of orcs, a rather large group of orcs, that are in the mountain areas as well. Then you have the actual temple area, the Temple of Tharizdun. And the descriptions of the temple are rather interesting in how Gygax lays it out. He also has, in the temple, amongst the Norkers, you have gnolls, there's a mountain giant, there is several other type of creatures, such as an anise, there's ogres, dire wolves, there's giant trolls, grell, So quite a bit of a mixture of creatures in this module. What I found interesting in this module is that the mixture of creatures, most of them, or at least I'd say half, are from the Fiend Folio. As I said, you had the Norkers, there's a giant troll, there's a mountain giant, just to name a few that are out of the Fiend Folio. There, and I also recall there's a Coffer Corpse area as well. And that's just the monsters. And that is rather interesting. What is very interesting is the way that the player characters have to find their way around this thing. It's somewhat complex. There's a lot of things that they have to do, a lot of things that they have to find to get to what would be the actual inner workings of the temple beyond the dungeon, to getting into the under temple area. One of the things that's rather interesting is at the very beginning, Gygax gives a very detailed description of how the Norkers and the Gnolls and the very top of the temples, how they're going to defend the temple. And it's very detailed description. Now, some DMs might like that, some might not, but I thought it was rather interesting that Gygax thought it was important to lay out the defenses of the upper level as he would for the DM. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to follow it exactly to a T, but I think it's some pretty good guidelines to go by for a DM when running this particular adventure. Now, as far as other things like traps, there are a few traps, but nothing far as mechanical. There's a lot of magical traps, especially at the end when you get to the under temple area. And quite frankly, the trap is rather deadly. If you don't make it's a typical save or die type scenario that you might run in with a Gygax adventure. So overall, lots of interesting monsters, a mix of Monster Manual and Fiend Folio monsters, some traps, but it's really a fact-finding adventure. Find out what this temple actually is. Even some of the monsters that inhabit this temple, particularly the mountain giant who's kind of running things, he's not particularly comfortable in certain areas of this temple. He's not so certain, he's very afraid of certain areas of this temple as well he will not go into. Which goes into the whole basis of the module is atmosphere. As I said, the atmosphere of this module is very Lovecraftian horror, beyond space and time kind of thing. And there's a really good example of this, at least I think. One of them is an area called the Large Antechamber. And I'll read this, quote, "This square room has strange striations of color on its walls. These lines of plum color, mauve veins, and lilac worms make the beholder somewhat nauseous if he stares at them for more than a few seconds. These colors are faint, but they seem to writhe and twist when not looked at, as if as soon as the viewer looked away and then took up some secretive and obscene motion observable only from the corner of the eye." End quote. Yes, there's stuff like that all throughout the module. So one gets the feeling when running this as a DM that there is some underlying unnatural horror about the whole temple itself. And you might even want to drop hints of that even along the way to the temple. Maybe there's some strange things lurking out of the corner of the eye, and as soon as you look at it, oh, everything's fine. Maybe things aren't just quite right. Things aren't not as they appear as they should. I think that makes a very good scenario, in my opinion. Now, as I said earlier, there are certain things, there are certain areas that the player characters need to find in order to get to the under temple of the Forgotten Temple of Tharizdun. And certain things happen and play out to where the player characters interact, and they get to this area called the Black Cyst, which is possibly, it's not necessarily say in the module itself, but this Black Cyst could possibly be the quote-unquote resting place of Tharizdun himself, or itself. Now, it doesn't necessarily say it in the module, but one gets the impression that maybe this is like what is part of Tharizdun is poking out into the player character's reality. And there, once the player characters get to this area, there are some rewards, some pretty good rewards that are waiting for the player characters. Now, does it mean that that Tharizdun is blocked out of our reality forever? No, not really. It's more of a tangible treasure in itself. Doesn't necessarily lock Tharizdun away forever, but it seems there is some sort of reward for the player characters. Now, a little bit about this module itself, or at least surrounding it, is this is one of these modules that it seems kind of fallen under the radar for a lot of people. It seemed, at least for me, gone quite unnoticed for quite some time, even when it was out. I got my copy maybe, I believe it was in 1990 or 91 at a game store somewhere outside of Memphis, Tennessee. And it was the first time I ever seen this one. I'm like, this is quite unusual. Never seen this one, never even heard of it before, as far as I recalled. And I picked it up, and I was very fortunate to get my copy there. So this is one of those I'm really kind of surprised about, that when I picked it up, it has a lot of good atmosphere, a lot of good mixture of monsters and traps. And if you like, Lovecraft, Robert E. Howard, that sort of swords and sorcery type of reading and genre, very pulpy in that respect, this is really up your alley, and I think you'd really enjoy it. So I highly, highly recommend this module if you can get a hold of it. I'm sure you can find it on places like eBay or at your local conventions. But like I said, it's one of those that you don't hear a whole lot about, but it seems like at least in in recent years, it's gotten a little bit more recognition. And from what I understand, a little bit of footnote to this whole module was laid out, artwork, the whole shebang in like a month at TSR Hobbies, which I guess is rather unusual in that respect. So highly recommend this module for anybody who likes that sort of swords and sorcery or swords and sandals kind of literature. And again, fantastic. I hope to run it again for my players very soon. So this is Blackstone signing off, and we're hoping that all your hits are crits.
Ooh, one of those electronic voting dealies.
So for the last segment tonight, we have the 10-foot pole. Yay! Yay! And the 10-foot pole this week is, you're about to fight the big bad. How do you do it? Do you, A, plan a well-placed attack, wiping out the minions one by one, then the big bad? And then our group just runs in. This is option B. Our group just runs in and kills whatever moves. Haha. Option C. Kill all except the big bad, have him beg for mercy, then kill him anyway. And final D is fight everything and knock out the big bad, bringing him into justice. Funny that got
What's
no votes.
That middle one again?
Our group just runs in and kills whatever moves.
No. What was the first one?
Plan a well-placed attack, wiping out the minions one by one, then the big bad. Or kill everything except the big bad and have him beg for his life and then kill him anyway. What would you vote for, Jayson?
Was there anything about converting him to your cause?
Bringing him into justice would work for converting his cause.
I'll do that one.
So there's one vote for that.
I did plan a well-placed attack, wiping out the minions. Yeah, because that's our MO in our group.
Yeah, that's my group's the same way. It's like, okay.
But how they do it is completely out of left field. That's the thing. It's like, yeah, that's the general idea what they do, but how they execute that, you're like, hey?
Well, it seems like the people voted with you with the plan of well-placed attack with 50% of the votes.
Yes.
And
56 now since I voted.
Oh, sorry, 56. And
refresh the stream, buddy.
Sorry. And our group that runs in and kills everything is not far behind. And Kill All is third. And Jayson running in last with 1 vote. Fight everything.
2 now.
2 now, yeah. Because, yeah, Jayson.
Oh, you're voting often, huh?
Yeah, Jayson votes often.
No, I haven't voted yet.
Oh.
No, I had no votes, and you're now number 1.
Oh, I'm the only vote?
Yes.
All right.
So that's going to put nail in the coffin for the episode this week. The issue number 59, 59, the Farewell Jayson show.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hi, Jayson.
Ciao.
If we only had a few more minutes. Anyway, that's the show. Keep it original, keep it old school. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Roll for initiative.